Good evening, everyone. Tracy Luciani-Price from Price Team Mortgages talking about separation and mortgages. I was just at my nephew's beautiful wedding on Saturday in Ancaster and seeing the love and the bliss and everyone's well wishes and happiness on that day just brought me great joy, because you always think to yourself, oh my goodness, isn't that the way love should be? But what happens when love goes wrong? You know, it's sad that I'm bringing this up today after going to that joyous event, but I also am on the other side of when people separate. And I see a lot of people who are under a lot of stress as there's lots of fights when separations. It doesn't have to be that way, but often there's a lot of fights, and people get into kind of survival mode, which is where everybody's trying to scratch for their piece of the pie. Obviously, when there's children involved, it's even more devastating. I've been through it myself, and I guess that's part of the reason I have a penchant for helping people who are going through a horrible separation. But I can usually help it not be horrible. And that's when both of the couple leave with their dignity, and they're able to restart their life and not lose significant amounts of money and pride and everything else. So we do see people that are thinking about separating and want to know what their rights are in terms of mortgages. One of the biggest misnomers is that you have to sell the house. Nothing could be farther from the truth, and that's why you can come and see us. You don't have to sell your home when you are separating and split the equity. One person can stay in the home, and often it takes a strategy from us to figure out how to keep the person, the wife or the husband, in the home, and actually talking to the other side on how to make that happen. If there is not sufficient income for the client to keep the home, we often add a father or a mother as a co-signer. So that person that is living in the home, once they are receiving support for the children and reestablishing themselves in a career, sometimes people already make decent money and they don't need a co-signer, but often is the case that they need a co-signer in order to pay out the exiting spouse. Now, the good news is that you can go up to 95% of the value of the current value of the home, and often, many times, that's a really good place. If you can go up to 95% of the home for a refinance, you can pay off the existing spouse. So if, let's say, the house is worth $500,000, you have a $300,000 mortgage, so the existing equity would be $200,000. Then you would split the equity, and the exiting spouse would get $100,000. Now, with $100,000, they could go on and buy another home. So instead of both people going off, you know, half-cocked and angry at each other, what happens is often if it's fairly acrimonious, we can sit down with both and say, who wants to keep the home? Who wants to stay in their home, and who wants to leave? And you know, you love this person deeply when you were married to them. So please take a step back. Find somewhere that in your heart, get into your heart and find out how you both can go on and live happily apart. Nothing is worse for the children to see their parents fighting and arguing about money, and nothing is worse than seeing someone have to go to live in, you know, subsidized housing all of a sudden because they one time had their home. We see everything here. So if you start with a strategy and come to us first, we can help you figure out how to make this all work. When you think about it, if you can pay out your ex-spouse the money that they are asking for, or they believe they should be entitled to, if you can avoid lawyers that only try to, some lawyers, I'm not saying all, get you angry at each other, more angry, and certainly that was the case in my painful divorce. Try to keep a level head. Try to take the emotion out of it. Try to look at this as a business arrangement where you both have a win-win situation, that both of you can go on with your life. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about this evening. Now, really, in actual fact, if people that have gone through a divorce, often it has to do with finances. So those of you that are sitting on the fence and thinking about separating or thinking this isn't worth it, often financial stress is at the crux of the problems. Other things develop afterwards, but really it's because you are both, one person is spending, the other person disagrees with the spending. You're both operating, well, I earn my money, you shouldn't be able to tell me what to do with my money. So again, it's getting back on the same page. And the way most couples operate today, unfortunately, is not, like our parents did, where they budgeted their money, and they more was in today's day and age is going out than coming in. So this is where everything starts. So I don't know, try and mend fences, do whatever you can to keep your marriage if you can. That's the best, especially if it's a healthy relationship. If it's unhealthy and it cannot be mended and there's no way back, then please think about how one person can keep the home, if that's in the children and your best interest. I just had recently a client who came to us, and basically she had been turned down by her bank. She couldn't get a mortgage on, and she was a child care operator on her house, and she was really being bullied, really being told, it's my house, get out of my house, you need to go and find some place to rent, and she was going to lose not only her income, but also the home for her daughter. So we were able to find a solution for her to pay out her ex-spouse. She's able to stay in her home. She's able to not disrupt her child. And now actually the spouse has come to the table and is happy because he's going to leave the marriage with $30,000, which is exactly what he wanted. So many times separating couples are actually kind of stuck. They don't know how they can even separate because there isn't enough money. And we help you figure out how that can happen, how you can stay in your home, how you can afford to live. And what is really beautiful is even after people separate a few years later, even though they were at one time crying in their beer and very, very sad, I love when they come back to us and they say, I've met somebody and I've fallen in love again. So it's life. It's a cycle of life. I hope you all have lots of love in your life and try to keep your marriages good and strong. That's the best. But if you can't and you need some help, please give us a call. Good night.